Welcome. Welcome to QBI and the 2019 International Women's Day celebration. I'm Pankaj Sir, I'm the director of the QBI. And look, I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Jagera and the Turrbal people, the land and their land upon which the University of Queensland now stands, and we pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and those that are emerging. And of course, a special welcome to Raynuha Sinnathamby, our special speaker today, and Barbara George-Jaeggli, and Rebecca San Gil, the researchers who are both on the panel today, and of course Dr. Dee Gibbon, who I'll introduce a bit later, who will be moderator for today's panel discussions. So friends, donors, and UQ colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. So today's International Women's Day initiative is jointly done with the Queensland Brain Institute and the Queensland Alliance for Agriculture and Food Innovation, QAAFI. In fact, this is, I think, our first event together with QAAFI. And of course, with Thomas, thank you to UniSuper, who is generously donating for today's lunch today. So this year's theme for International Women's Day is Balance for Better. I mean, if those of you have seen the pictures, Balance for Better. And, of course, within QBI itself, we have a balance of people. We've come from all over the world here. And if you walk around the Institute, you'll see, about 40% of our staff are women. And of course, we have people from all around the world here, both as students and faculty as well. So our staff, of course, at QBI and QAAFI are working on some of the biggest problems in the world today. I mean, for QBI itself, mental disorders and, what the reason for them are and how do you treat them. And QAAFI, of course, with the growing population and the impending climate change that's coming, how do you feed these people? And once you've fed them, what do you do with the problems that they encounter, which is what QBI does. Or is going to do, if not doing right now. So look, the problems, both QAAFI and QBI are involved in are varied, and then they're difficult problems, and they don't have simple solutions to them. And the solutions are not going to come from someone sitting in a lab coat just thinking about it. Well, sometimes they do come that way. And, for those of us who've worked in large groups, having balance is perhaps not the right word, but at least having a diversity of opinions is what drives this research. And most of the interesting ideas, come really from cups of coffee with people from different sort of parts of life, different genders. Gender balance is something we're trying to achieve here. And my own laboratory, which is about 20 people, about 40% of my staff are women, and we come from all over the world. We have people from the Netherlands, Poland, France, China, and India. And, myself, I'm from India originally, so there you go. It's a good starting point. And for QBI, we're hoping to move forward in this space. So I'd like to call on Sallyanne Atkinson. Sallyanne, for those of you who I'm sure you know, Sallyanne is a long-time friend of QBI. She was the first and only Lord Mayor of Brisbane and the only woman to date, really. And she's blazed the trail as a journalist, politician, and a business leader. She's president of University of Queensland Women's College and former Queensland chair of the Crawford Fund for Agricultural Research. And she's, of course, on our advisory board and has been chair of our advisory board for many years. She's committed to exploration of science and learning. Welcome, Sallyanne.
Actually, I'm only here because I'm introducing Raynuha, but I would like to take the opportunity to thank and support Pank in his welcome to you all. You will have noticed this is not International Women's Day. We are radical thinkers at QBI, and when it didn't suit Raynuha to come on International Women's Day itself, we said, what the? We'll have it another day, and we did. So it's sort of International Women's Week, which really is most appropriate, in fact, I think. I'm delighted this morning to introduce Raynuha, but I'm delighted as well to see such diversity in our audience. Lots of blokes, which is good. Lots of young people, which is good, particularly the girls from Women's College and their dean, Sally Northcroft. A couple of older people, including my good friend Glenda Powell in her 80s, a geriatrician. So it just shows that the world is a wide place and we want to make it better in all the ways that we can. One thing I should say is that when you have lunch, do mix around. particularly the young people. Use your speakers today as resources. One of the great things about a networking lunch, and one of the great things about not sitting down for lunch, just warning you, is that you can move around, and so do take advantage of that. I'm delighted, as I said, to introduce Rayna because she's such a fantastic person in her own right, and you're going to listen to her this morning, but also because Springfield, of which she's the CEO, has so many connections with QBI. We've even had a board meeting out there, and I went by train, which I have to say, none of my board colleagues wanted to go by train, but I did. And very interesting it was too. You saw the backyards of Chelmer and Corinda, like you've never seen them before. But QBI has a lot of connections with Springfield through the MARTA, through the neuroscience, and also through our Clem Jones Dementia Centre, because Clem, which I didn't know, Clem had a connection with Maha Sinnathamby, Rayna's father, in that he was the surveyor of Springfield. So whether that sort of helped things along a bit, I don't know. But it's just wonderful to make all those connections and to be in the same family as we are. But Rayna, of course, is a distinguished person in her role, in her job, but also what she's contributed to women and to diversity. She has a law degree. All of her sisters are lawyers. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing. The whole three of them are lawyers anyhow, but and they all work in the family business, and that's definitely a good thing. She is a graduate of UQ. She was involved for many years, and probably still is, but I knew her with her involvement with the Property Council and really championing women in development and really championing diversity there. So she certainly walked the talk, and she knows what she's talking about. And can I just also echo Pank's thanks to QAAFI, who are our partners, and good to see my good friend Yasmina Saltambawa contributing to diversity, because she comes from Sri Lanka, as does my scarf, Yasmina. So we're all doing our little bit. But anyhow, enough for me in the chatter. Rayna, please come and join us.
Thanks, Sallyanne. That was a lovely introduction. I'd also like to thank Pankaj. I think there's been a bit of scheming going on between Sallyanne and Pankaj to get me here today, but it's wonderful to be here with you all on this International Women's Week. Let's go with that, because unfortunately I wasn't able to come here on Friday. So today I was asked to speak a little bit about my career journey and how I came to be Managing Director of Springfield City Group. And I guess it's not a one-year journey, it's not even a 10-year journey, it's more like a lifetime experiences to bring us all to where we are today. The little things that happened along the way, the pats along the back, sometimes the gripes and swipes that you had to endure with, those are things and experiences that shape where we've all been and how we've got to be to where we are. And so it's been no different for me. In fact, I think I have been extremely fortunate in life, and that I've been given many, many opportunities during the whole in my whole existence. But one of the greatest things that I have been the recipient of is that lesson to use the power of positive thinking. And I think it can be one of the most powerful tools that we have, that we can also learn and that we can use to motivate others, whether it's our children, whether it's our parents, whether it's the people that we work with, or just our friends. So probably my first, and I would have had many experiences with this, but one of the most memorable is when in the 80s our family moved from Perth to come to Brisbane. I was ridiculously sad about this. I was extremely homesick and I missed all my friends. And my father, who Sallyanne has mentioned is the chairman and founder of Greater Springfield, was always there to lift my spirits. And I know that he had so many other concerns in his life, but he was always there trying to make me look at the positives in life. And I remember when this university seemed out of reach for me in terms of ever being a student here, he would encourage me to come and study here after school. And he would tell me, just walk the halls as if you're a student there and imagine the joy of being a student there. And it was such a funny thing as a teenager to even think about or to be directed to do, but to be able to visualise where you want to be and then dream it into existence, I think that is a very powerful thing. How many of us have dreams? How many of us want to be the most fabulous researcher, the best athlete, the most amazing parent? We all have dreams and aspirations. And this is the power of positive thinking that can help lead you there. I was extremely fortunate to be a student of UQ and to actually not only be a student but get out the other end with a degree as well, in fact a couple. And it's something that I really treasured. Perhaps not at exam time, but the experience and the opportunities that it gave me have just been so memorable. And when I was a law student, I just was in awe of the other students around me, and especially those that seemed to breeze through the course, whilst I spent way too many hours in the library just trying to scrape through my subjects. And I even remember during law, I did an internship with one of the law firms, and they had this rule that women could not wear pants. And hello, this was the 90s, right? And all I can say, it was winter clerkship. This body's not made for cold, and I wore pants. So after uni, I went on to practice law. And of course, property law, it was in the genes. And whilst it was a world of men, women were emerging as a strong force. And I know it did take some time for me to earn my stripes in the firm, like any organisation that people enter. But I was able to work hard, get along with the rest of the team and become a valued member of the staff. Excuse me. And that was when my father asked me to join Springfield Land Corp, as it was at the time, then became Springfield City Group. Well, I must say I didn't immediately jump at it. It was a big leap from the lavish law offices, big mahogany desks, water views, to then go into the tiny fledgling suburb of Springfield. But any of you that know my father can know he can be extremely convincing, am I right, Sallyanne? And no sooner was I there at Springfield. And it was a really different place than it is now. It was a small office. We had 11 people. In Springfield at the time, we had a small shopping centre, we had a tavern, and a new primary school had just opened. But there was nowhere to get a latte, I can tell you that much, nor any other fancy stuff. No banks, no nothing. Probably half the team at the time were female, and that included my mum, who did all the conveyancing, and my sister, who at the time was doing commercial sales and leasing. And this is where you really learn to bring dreams into existence. This is where you learn about the real power of positive thinking, about believing in yourself and whatever your vision is. So we had a vision to build a city, homes, a CBD, a university, a golf course, rail lines, new highway. That was our dream. And inside our office, we totally believed in this vision. We had so much faith in it. We'd talk about, oh, when we build this highway, we're just going to get a car and drive up and down it the whole day. This was the type of conversations we had because no one was telling us that we couldn't do it. And none of us had built a city, let alone a golf course or anything else for that. Oh, I mean, obviously other things, but certainly not these big game-changing ideas. And we also had very limited connections to government, to other industries. But I do remember the strong belief that we had in that master plan, and we hung it on the wall with immense pride, and that guided a lot of our thinking. We would talk really fondly of this energised community. We would talk about these pillars that we created of health, education and IT. They were to be the pillars of our community. And this was at a time when no one had a mobile phone, let alone a computer at home. In fact, one of our first promotions in Greater Springfield was that we would give away a free Apple computer with every house and land package that we sold. And buyers would just come to us and say, well, why would I need a computer at home? It just was incomprehensible. And similarly in our office, when I arrived there, not everyone had a computer, it was a big thing. But I said, it'd be pretty good if we had email. So I went to the IT guy, the person that knew the most about technology in a company, i.e. more than a calculator. And I said, oh, look, do you think we could get email on the computers, because that would be really good? And he said, oh, I put it on, but then I took it off because no one was using it. And we're supposed to be building a digital city. So we just had to move forward. It was a big dream. It could make an immense difference, not just to people that lived in Greater Springfield, but the entire Western Corridor. And people often ask me, so what do you do in Springfield? Well, there's no job description for building a city. And remember, when I started, there was 11 people. So if you wanted something done, guess what? You got the job. So over time, I've done everything from HR, marketing, I've done legals, tax planning, project management, sales, leasing, event creation, dark fibre. Yep, I didn't know what that was either. Strategic planning, community engagement, establishing groups within our organisation and attending an immense amount of community events. And a very senior lawyer for whom I have great respect asked me once, well, how did I learn to do my job? And I think this answer is probably threefold. One, being thrown in the deep end. I've had lots of projects where I just had no idea where to start, whether it's at uni or in my professional career, just not really knowing where to start. So what do? You just start. And actually, Sue Basu's in the audience today, and I have a great story that Sue told me. And Sue was the first employee employed by the director of the USQ Springfield campus. And she was employed a few months probably before the uni was to open, with the direction was, we've got a uni to open, so let's just make that happen. So I think the story goes something like this. Sue goes back to her desk, thinks about, okay, so that's a bit of a task and a half. Where do we start? And she opened her drawer, looked inside, stationery. We'll need stationery. And she just got started. And it's an amazing story and something Sue should be very proud of, because now, and I always remember the first graduation where the valedictorian got up, and there was this crowd probably a little bit larger than this, and with tears in his eyes said, if not for this uni, me nor 50% of my cohort sitting up there would have ever gone to university. So that's the stamp that people like Sue have made on this universe, and I have a great deal of respect for what you did, Sue. So just get started. The other thing was a willingness to learn. I joined, it was a family company, and as I said, there was no job description. You just had to be willing to learn. And as I said about the dark fibre, I was rung on a day off and said, look, we need to document this thing called dark fibre and talk about a steep learning curve, because you just have to get on with it. There's no one else to call on to do the job. And the other thing is never give up. It's been a big part of our family growing up, and it's also been part of our company. In fact, within our company, we developed a saying that it's no until it's yes. And really this was because the early days of Springfield were so challenging. It challenged planners, it challenged prospective buyers, and it even challenged government. And whilst within our doors we talked about the success and building a city, outside our doors, we were mocked, ridiculed, and often rejected. And hence this philosophy of no until it's yes. We were so used to being turned down, rejected, ignored, that it became obvious to us that we had to ignore the first rejection and perhaps even the second. But we would not accept failure. We would just hang in there until we were finally able to succeed if it was the right thing to fight for our community. If we were to convince thousands of people to call Greater Springfield home, well, we had to fight for them. Whether it was a mailbox, whether it was a bus service, if we really felt that the community was backing us, and we in turn had to be out there fighting for them as our community grew and demanded those services. There was a point in time when the federal government decided to roll out cancer facilities through the regions of the country. And this was something that we thought we really did have a need for in our corridor. We became aware that one of the local MPs would pay for a bus service. It would travel through the region, picking people up that needed cancer care and taking them back to Brisbane. Sometimes that trip could take up to 3 hours. Then receive your cancer treatment and then the same journey back home. We thought we had a great case for a local facility. A great need, a growing corridor, and a supportive local MP. So we partnered up with the Mater Hospital, we launched a submission and we eagerly waited the result. Well, naturally when the result came, we missed out. And we were really disappointed, but of course we were encouraged to apply for the next round of funding. Sound familiar? Anyone here? And, you know, we have this philosophy of no until it's yes, so we grabbed Mater, again jointly applied for the funding, and the second round result came out and we had failed again. And we're fairly stubborn people, so, you know, we were up for the third time. By this time, Mater's kind of, you know, wondering if we're a little bit loopy, but politely agrees to come along for the ride. And third time lucky, you might think, but no, we failed again. So what do? Do you finally get the message? Well, no, because we honestly felt that this was wrong. We honestly just thought that the region deserved better. The patients in our community were growing, the corridor was growing, and we deserved better. So we decided to appeal. Now, there's no formal process for appealing other than to just chuck up a stink. We made representations to government. Our local MP even bailed up the Prime Minister on the floor of Parliament. And one day I got a call from the local MP and he said, Rayna, Prime Minister's coming to Springfield tomorrow and I think we're going to get a cancer clinic. And sure enough, fourth time lucky. So in 2015, Mater did establish a cancer clinic and private hospital in Springfield. It not only offers amazing health services for our community, it offers jobs for local residents and nearby healthcare for our community. So I guess what I'm saying is failure is a part of life. Failure is something we should embrace, not accept, but embrace, because failure brings resilience. It really can bring out the best out of us. It ensures that we try harder, we believe more in our cause, and we can put everything on the line to give it our best shot again and sometimes again. It really builds resilience in our communities, and we need that so much to deal with personal challenges, to deal with work challenges, to even deal with challenges of our weather. So embrace failure, never be ashamed of it, and nor should we succumb to it. So if you do have a no until it's yes philosophy, you'll realise that the challenges and hurdles of life are just there to be climbed over. Today, if you came to Greater Springfield, you will see around 40,000 residents. We have 11 schools, 5 state schools and the balance are private schools. We have a campus of TAFE and a campus of the University of Southern Queensland. In terms of leisure, we have about 50 parks, but the centrepiece is our Rebel Domain, which we built because we wanted to change the way the city celebrated. And Rebel Band has done that. It has some of the most amazing events, including one of the biggest dawn services in the region, which was started by USQ, and Sue knows all about that. It's amazing. It's amazing what that uni did when they first established that dawn service. We have our own South Bank style swimming lagoon, which, as you can imagine, in a hot corridor is a very welcome and loved part of our project. And as part of our jobs target, we have delivered about 20,000 direct and indirect jobs, everything from jobs in the hospital, Orion Shopping Centre and the GE State Courts headquarters, which we relocated to Springfield in 2015. We have homes which entry level about 380,000 to over $1 million, which would be an executive home looking over our Greg Norman designed golf course. Yeah, that golf course that we used to dream about. And we are connected to the QR rail network, as Sallyanne pointed out, with 2 stations in Greater Springfield. So we've had an extremely busy 26 years. And I'd also like to talk about, during my career, I've been helped enormously by many people. So my biggest supporters, other than my husband and my family, have been my dad and his business partner, Bob Sharpless. They've put a lot of faith in me. They've given me some big challenges, but as I saw it, some amazing opportunities as well. They really created an environment for people to succeed, and that is a real blessing that I've had. I did not want to let them down, and I still do not want to let them down. They've literally put their lives on the line to create Greater Springfield, and our entire staff now really have to take the project to new heights for the founders and also for our city residents. As Sallyanne mentioned, I have spent a lot of my time in my career working with different community groups and industry groups, and in particular the Property Council, of which I was Queensland President a few years ago. I'm still involved with the Property Council, and I sometimes think that the Property Council found me rather than me going to look for them, and I'm so grateful that they came looking. It really has opened my eyes to better industry practices. It has motivated me to set up our Springfield City Group's Inclusion and Diversity Council, and also set me down a path of supporting other women in our industry. And this began in a small way by supporting the young development managers within our industry. When I probably first joined Springfield, it was very rare to see property development managers. I would now say that across every division in our organisation, women are emerging as a strong and powerful force, and that's across legal, across finance, across development, sales, hospitality and landscaping. They have taken key roles, not because they were women, but because they were the best people for the job. So approximately 2 years ago, we set up the Inclusion and Diversity Council in Springfield City Group. And this has really given me a great insight into people in our workplace. And many of us feel vulnerable. Many of us hide behind our differences rather than celebrating these. One of the most important things that we can all do as leaders is just be authentic, embrace the differences in our teams and encourage diversity. Learn not to be the smartest person in the room, but be open to learn from others. We owe it to those looking up to us to lend a helping hand and to be open to listen. You really never know the impact that you have on another person, so don't take for granted that the role you play, because I think that in some way we are all leaders, whether it's the leaders of our team, the leaders of our family, the leaders of a cultural group to which we belong. We are all leaders. At my company, we bought a disused forestry operation, and we could have created anything, but we chose to create a world-class city. We have had our challenges, our hecklers and our hardships, but we've also created an amazing place for 40,000 people, which will grow to 150,000 people, that allows them to live, learn, work and play in one location. From great education facilities, fantastic parklands, public transport, we have really dreamed our vision into existence. And after the dark nights, we always knew that we would see the sun rise again. So have a dream. That is an opportunity we've all been given. And the next step is to dream our dreams into existence. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thanks, Rayna. Look, thanks for sharing your insights. And look, if any of you have not been out to Springfield, I encourage you to go out there. So you're driving along the Western Freeway up there, out of nowhere comes this Springfield, which is very surprising, I have to say. And, you know, for someone, I was in Brisbane actually in the early 90s, driving out there was really not much out there. And yet now there is a sort of thriving, very interesting place. So let me introduce Dee Gibbon. Dee Gibbon is the Associate Director of Workplace Diversity and Inclusion at UQ. And Dee, before joining UQ, was for many years served in the Australian Air Force, where she served as NATO's Senior Gender Advisor to the Resolute Support Mission in Kabul, Afghanistan, working directly with the Ministers of Interior and Defence. So Dee has had a lot of experience in this space, and she'll be leading the discussion today. Dee.
Thanks, Pankaj. I'm not only going to visit Springfield, I am thinking seriously about moving to Springfield because it just sounds really amazing. So I'm going to talk to my husband about that tonight. Thank you so much to QAAFI and QBI for organising this wonderful event. This is the favourite week that diversity practitioners have in the whole year, especially when you work, like in the military, you're always working with men, you're often the only woman in a room, the only woman on a course, and I know for a lot of the scientists that are here today, that's their experience. So International Women's Week is a chance to come together with our sisters and our brothers and talk about women's success. And we've got a panel full of enormously successful, rather intimidating women to talk to us today. Yes, I'm looking at you, Sallyanne. So you've met Rayna and you've met Sallyanne, but I'd like to introduce our other speakers. So Barbara is a scientist, a very, very successful, one of our UQ Rock superstars in STEM type scientists. And Barbara works really hard to understand how to maximise yield from crops in variable contexts. And I think all of us would appreciate how important your research is at this very point in time. And that's her day job when she's not being an amazing rock star scientist. Barbara is actually really working hard to create a more equitable workplace for scientists. She supports and personally mentors a lot of women, and she's a real advocate for equal opportunity, especially in the home. And she would like for men to have equal opportunity to share in the family and domestic responsibilities, and I think that's an incredibly noble goal. And then we have Rebecca. Now, Rebecca's an emerging superstar in STEM, working here at QBI. And Beck's working on trying to what's the gene thing that you're doing?
Gene editing.
Gene editing for motor neurone disease. And if any of you have had friends or relatives impacted by this incredibly horrific, awful shutting people in disease, you'll know just how important the work that Beck does is. And I think all of the work that's done by QAAFI and QBI is life-changing, and it's why we're here at UQ supporting the people like you who are doing such phenomenal research. So that's enough from me. I think we're all sick of me already. So what I'd like to do is actually ask our phenomenal panel just to draw on your own experiences working in fields that can be very trying and difficult for women, especially when Sallyanne, when you became the Lord Mayor, there were very few women in politics in Queensland or anywhere nationally, even less than there are now, which I think probably a lot of the young women would find quite amazing. So Because there are so few women in Australian leadership roles, what do organisations need to do to really foster a culture where women can succeed and lead?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Look, is this working?
Yes, it is.
Can you hear me up the back? Oh, you are. I think it's interesting that we're sitting here in a university space because leaders of 4 of our universities in Queensland are female. We have 4 female vice-chancellors, USQ, Griffith, QUT and JCU. Not yet. We're not trying to stage a coup or anything. And our Deputy Director, of course, here at QBI, Linda Richards, is also female. It's interesting when you were talking about women and of course I come from a different generation, a different perspective. So if you're interested in history, I'm your gal. But it's interesting that in 1979, when I was first elected to the Brisbane City Council, there were no women in the House of Representatives. It's hard today to think that, not one. We got the first woman who went into the House of Representatives, and it was Elaine Darling from Queensland in 1981. So in many ways, we have come a long way. When I began here at UQ, there were only 8,000 students at UQ, and that was all the university students for Queensland, because this was the only university. But of those 8,000, only 1,800 were women. But we still have not arrived, we still have not achieved. Your question, to come to it, was what do we do within organisations? I've been thinking about why, so I think women at the top is not so much a problem. It's women on the way up and the obstacles that they face to getting to the top. And I think one of the problems has been that men have felt threatened. Other women, perhaps when they get there, are threatened. And I think we have to address why there are not more women in the sort of semi-top roles, if you like, in the sub-senior roles, on the way to the top. One of the reasons I think that there are not so many women on boards as there ought to be, although every day you see a photograph in the paper of a woman CEO. So lots of women in that space, usually looking fabulous and dressed beautifully, which is another issue, actually, because they don't photograph men looking beautiful because they never do. They're in suits. But or not in a suit.
Some of the men in this audience look very beautiful.
So it's really thinking about why women are not getting on in organisations. Why today? And I might leave it to my fellow panellists to talk about that.
Yeah, well, actually, I joined QAAFI only 5 years ago, and before that I had a long career in DAF, and I still work for DAF, the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. And very early on, Warren Hoey was our Director General, and he put in place this Women's Advisory Group that I was part of. And there we discussed what we could be doing, and targets was one thing that DAF has implemented to really say we want to increase the number of women in senior leadership. And just for preparation for today, I looked up DAF's management, and now the Board of Management has 3 women and 2 men. So our Director General, Beth Woods, is a woman. So I think putting in place groups or, people who organise themselves and think, what can we do? The people who every day experience these sort of things come together and think and then advise the senior leaders. And QAAFI is doing that now too. So we've got the Equity and Diversity group that I'm part of now as well, and Dee Gibbon is giving us...
I think I'm also part of that.
Yes, you are. I haven't met you before, but we've been trying to catch up.
You will.
Yes, so we're doing the same now at QAAFI, and I think that is what's needed, apart obviously from what everyone else can do, like addressing our biases and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it's a very complicated question. That's why it's been so persistent throughout history. And one way that we could try and overcome it operationally is to look at institutes or businesses that have a really successful model and do have those both gender parity but also an inclusive environment. So we could have a look at their policies and see what we can implement in an everyday basis in those instances when hiring into positions of leadership as well. so that those positions come under a bit more scrutiny than the rest.
I'm a big believer is you can't be what you can't see. And when I met Rebecca today, I said, you need to get out there and speak more, because it's great for women to see other women succeed, and that it forms a pathway for them to follow, that they can see themselves in that role. And so I think that's something simple we can do. So I know at the Property Council, one of the things, the simple things that we did was that a minimum of 30% of people on our panels had to be female. And I'm sorry, like that's minimum, you know, so obviously you want to overachieve on that. And it seems so simple, we've been doing it for years. I went to an event last year, a Queensland event. There were 10 speakers on the panel and 1 moderator. And how many do you think were female? The moderator. And it was, I just thought, we have come way beyond that, and they should kind of know better. Those are simple things that we can do to demonstrate to other people in our organisations, in leadership roles, in coming through the ranks, that there is more to be achieved.
Yeah, I think you really nailed the fact that it is a really complex problem. We've just done a whole bunch of research under the auspices of Sage Athena Swan at the University of Queensland, and what we found was, irrespective of how many women start in an academic career, so even in areas where women might comprise 70% of an occupational group at level A, there's an absolute drop. Usually from that level B to level C, and we didn't find one smoking gun. What we found was a bunch of different, microaggressions, small barriers that just compound, and it actually makes the choice to stay in academia quite a difficult one, especially at that sort of mid-type career stage.
There is also the problem of biology, women having babies. Better childcare is not the answer. We've seen these 2 prominent women leaving federal parliament. I don't believe because they were bullied, or I'm sure they didn't like the system, but really it is very difficult to cope with babies. In fact, science gave women female liberation the great breakthrough with the development of the contraceptive pill. The contraceptive pill is never given enough credit, I don't think, because when it was developed in the 50s, and I was newly married, I didn't do too well, I had 5 children, but you had to remember to take the contraceptive pill, which was always the big issue. But it was for the first time in history, and certainly in modern history, that women had proper control over their bodies, and they can choose when to have children or whether to have children. But I do think this issue of babies and having families is something that needs to be addressed. I know there are many women, and I know you're one, who's got a great husband. In fact, I was asked by a group of young women the other day what would be my single piece of advice for a woman, starting off on a career. And I said, get a supportive partner. I was only allowed one thing to say, but it makes such a difference if somebody is going to share the parenting. Otherwise, it's an issue, and that's why they all drop off.
Well, Sallyanne, I'm 100% convinced.
No. It's not, as you say, it's complex, and that's what you said, Beck. It's a very complex issue, and it's obviously one that we keep addressing, which is good.
Yeah, so we do need lots of really innovative strategies to actually try and sort of stem that trajectory change, especially in academia and also other organisations. So we've got about 10 minutes left. So what I'd like to do is actually throw to the audience to ask some questions of this amazing panel. Questions please. Yes, I think someone's going to run to you with a microphone. But nobody... Oh, are you running to her? I was going to do the running, but I don't need to now.
Thank you very much. I'd like to probably reframe the first question you asked, Ian, that I'm very committed to personal responsibility, and that's what I took for my career. What I'd like to know is what the panel think women should do to advance their career, not wait for the government should do something, organisations should do something. What should women individually do to advance their career? And maybe not so much look on, oh, I'm being discriminated against, or whatever. It's an attitude thing. So if we could look at it from an individual point of view, please.
Sure.
I'm happy to respond. I think one of the things is that as much as women are challenged by things like having, stepping out of the workforce to have families and things like that, I think it is about taking control to some extent. I think even some of the males within our workforce are challenged. They don't know the answers, but it's not as if they're not willing to be part of the solution. And, we've had female staff members who have taken time off to have families, and they are the most valuable people in our organisation. They'll sort of say they work 2 days a week and you probably get 4 days a week out of them because they just work. When they get there, it's just so flipping motivated to work. And I think that in some circumstances, it's almost providing the solutions to your employer about how it could work. And so I think it's a partnership between employer and employee, but I do find that managers are looking for solutions, and if you can be part of providing that solution, it could be a real good partnership for a way forward. Definitely we found that with our staff. We've tried to find ways to make it work rather than once you have a family, you're gone and catch you in 25 years' time.
I think I agree with you, and I think it's really important for women to believe in themselves, as Rayna has shown, and I know the obstacles that Maha, her father, faced. He paid absolutely no attention. He just powered on. If that's what you want to do, don't blame the system, just do it. And as you were saying, just start. And it's hard. And put up. Russ Hinds used to call me girly or pet, which is outrageous. I know, look at your face. But I knew what I wanted from Russ Hinds, which was money for the Brisbane City Council. So I smiled sweetly and got on with the job. And of course, it's a different generation now, and we wouldn't put up with A, Russ Hinds, or B, anybody calling us girly or pet.
I can add one more thing. So you said, what can you do personally? So what are you personally responsible for? So I have a long list of things that you can do and incorporate in your day-to-day life, whether it's making a strategic network of people that you can rely on and guide through your decisions. But I think one is, for me, is building confidence and seeking opportunities that not only help me build confidence, but also enrich my professional skill set. So if I can think of one, really big event that sort of put me here today, working as a postdoc at QBI, it would be looking for an opportunity to go overseas and make new collaborations with other researchers overseas. And through that, I applied for lots of different funding, and I was successful in getting a chunk of money to go over. And I can talk about it over lunch, but I just learned so much from that experience, learning how to network, collaborate, sustain long-distance professional relationships, but most of all, building upon my confidence and knowing that I have the confidence to go out alone and do research alone. Yeah.
That's excellent advice. Do we have another question? We've got time for another couple of questions. Yeah, over here. Is someone running with microphones? Please don't make me run with the microphone. This is all very collaborative.
Good teamwork. Yeah.
I'd like to just refer to Vera, the detective, who calls her colleagues pet on occasions. So that reminded me, Sallyanne, how are you, pet? That's a woman to men. The idea of better policy was referred to earlier, and I'm wondering what the panel think about a fairly radical idea of introducing quotas, for example, in the parliament or within each of the parties that would require them to meet certain targets as benchmarks for women's representation
Well,
touchy one.
it's a very difficult one. It's a difficult one. In theory, I think, there obviously should be 50% of all levels of government, at least 50% should be female because that's what the population is. The concern has always been that if somebody is chosen on the basis of sex or race or language or whatever, you're not going to get the best person for the job. So, luckily I don't have to make that decision, and I don't know is the answer to that.
But on the basis of what you just said, we don't want to choose on gender. We've always done that. For the last, how many years we've chosen on gender, and people have been put in jobs because they're all male and not female. So I always get a little bit aggravated when people come up with that argument, but we have to really choose just on merit. Because why suddenly now?
We're talking about political parties, I think,
yeah, but
which is different because enough women have to put themselves forward.
But if there is a quota, then people will really go out and seek people. They suddenly have to. Otherwise, they can just say, well, we couldn't find anyone. But if you have quotas, they really have to put strategies in place to fill those. And maybe as a temporary measure, that is what's needed in some instances. And if you're in an organisation that knows we need to cater for the population, which is 50% women, 50% men, you probably say, well, we have to have that on our board just to make sure we have that representation so we know what our customers want. And so it would be legitimate for a company to say, we need a woman in this case. It's just because we need to know what the people in our marketplace want. So I can't see a problem with actually having to choose one or the other. Yeah.
Did you? It's a really good question, and look, I think you can see the self-destruction of some parties just because they have no diversity in their leadership and their ranks, and it's just so obvious that there needs to be diversity. So I'm talking about diversity broadly, and I think that's where political parties should start, because it's more than about gender now. It's about diversity, and we have an extremely diverse population. This room extremely diverse. Age, gender, sex, sexual orientation. There's so many factors, and if they're going to succeed, they're going to need to get diverse. And if they're not diverse, they're going to fail. You're seeing it happen now. So if it could not be more obvious to me that there needs to be diversity. If that means you've got to put a quota in place to achieve it, I'm probably more leaning on targets than quotas. But you've got to start somewhere. Yeah.
You can love them or you can hate them, but there is irrefutable evidence that targets, quotas work. They actually work. They actually create change. And there are almost no examples of women who've been brought into organisations on the basis of targets, failing miserably. What it does is actually enable women to feel that they could compete and might have a chance, and they should put themselves forward for different roles, because the organisation or the party is actually saying, you're welcome here. We actually really want you. We need you. But it's very divisive. It's a very, very divisive issue.
I think Catherine Fox has a quote, or research shows that actually the capabilities of a board, or whatever you call it, quality of a board improves once they have those targets. So it speaks against bringing women in who are just put on because they are a woman. Actually, once they do that, the quality improves.
Yeah, there's so much evidence. Some of the most successful and profitable companies are those that have high representation of women on their boards or in CEO positions. The evidence is absolutely irrefutable. I'm yay targets, and I'm trying to get the university to yay targets as well, because they actually work. They do make a difference.
Isn't a target different from a quota?
So Liz Broderick, the former Sex Discrimination Commissioner, she uses targets only because the word quota is so divisive. Targets doesn't feel quite as divisive. So yeah, but really, targets are more what you're aiming for, whereas quotas are more of a definite bottom line, which then leads into people sort of thinking, we're going to throw away merit and, just fill the quota, whereas targets, I think, it's more aspirational language. All right, we've got time for one final question.
Hi. I just wanted to ask you guys about, you talk about targets or quotas. What about 4%? Is that a good number? So I'll tell you, 4% of all the venture capital actually goes to women at the moment. Is that an amazing number? 4%? Yes. We have 4% of venture capital that actually goes to women, to female founders at the moment. That is a abhorrent, quite a bad number, right? Compared to all the other numbers that we know. And that's why I'm part of an organization that's actually trying to change that. So SheEO, I don't know if any of you have heard of SheEO? Yeah? So we're going to, basically radical generosity, we're going to start a $1 billion fund that's going to be forever. It's like a, evergreen fund. And we're going to change that for all the entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs of Australia in the future. So at the moment, we're edging towards a 500 entrepreneur sort of target. So it would be really great if some of the females here would support that. Yeah. So I guess that the other comment I want to make also is that, I don't know if you guys have heard about a study that was done by Harvard Business Review, that they basically said they did a very long time study of a few thousand questions that were asked by ventures to understand why there were only 4% women, getting the venture funding. And the result was that the female entrepreneurs actually got asked questions about history, while male entrepreneurs get asked questions about the future. And in the venture field, future is where you get the most funding for. It's like all, the blue sky or the promises. And so, and therefore, the result of that study is that female needs to answer those questions in more the future-oriented ways rather than answer the historical-oriented ways. But I found it really hard because I'm helping my clients to actually go answer those questions in front of the ventures, and they always, come to the same question, and you just basically, you have the I guess they always want to answer what they ask you, right? So I guess my question is actually, do you guys have any comments on how we change this whole thing about the 4% female being funded by ventures?
I just think we have to keep asking the question why. Why is it so? And from that, answers will come.
What our ARC, being at a university here, our ARC funding is actually not very different, I think. I always look at when the funds come out or the results come out at the figures, and now if you're a female investigator on a proposal, you have a 52% chance of getting a proposal through compared to males who have a 48%, if I remember the figures. But get onto a proposal in the first place is nearly impossible. If you look through all the proposals that are out there for the ARC and you read the names, it's mostly just the odd female CA that's mentioned, and the rest is men. So what's the good of having a slightly improved chance now? Probably just speaks for the quality of the women on those proposals, but to get on there, and I think we could probably do something there as well with targets or quotas that people have to at least think about. Can we include a female colleague? And surely there are people around that we could put on the proposal, or diverse people. So.
All right, so I'm going to close the panel now by asking you one final question. It's a little bit tricky for you, because you're really young. But if you reflect back to advice that you would have given yourself as, a younger woman or a young woman, what advice would you give yourself?
Well, no, I won't reveal the advice I would have given myself, actually, in a public place. But, it's interesting. I was reading an article, an interview with Ita Buttrose the other day, and she was saying how when, she left school, she assumed she'd get married and have children, and that's exactly what I did. So as a young person, I never thought I'd do anything else but get married and have children and have a nice house. And then as part of the learning process, I discovered I wasn't terribly good at having a nice house because I actually had to do something to run it. So then I thought I was actually better at doing other things, and I went into the other things. So I think, all right, one bit of advice, sorry, that I can share is find out what you're good at and try to do it, and find out what you're bad at, very important, and never do it.
And I just wanted to say on a personal note, as things that you're good at, setting a vision for Brisbane and changing the cultural landscape has been amazing. So every time you're in a coffee shop having a latte, or every time you go to the arts centre and watch the ballet or see one of the world-class rock bands, say a quiet thank you to Sallyanne Atkinson, because she actually had that vision of completely changing the Brisbane landscape, and she was successful. Nobody makes fun of Brisbane anymore as a cultural backwater.
Well, actually, it just worked out where I went wrong, because I'm a person who, if I'm bad at something, I just have to get it. And I sort of know that has probably held me back, because I just want to be sure that I can do something before I put myself up for, you know, a further leadership or whatever. So, you know, I also own a farm, so I have to be able to back a trailer. It really annoys my husband how often I have to just practice and practice. And I like to have hands-on in everything I do. I don't sort of follow that philosophy of just do what I'm good at and the rest I leave. But I know that can hold you back a little bit. But for me, that didn't matter, because I just have the personal enjoyment of improving in things that I wasn't naturally good at.
Thank you, Barbara. Very different.
Sorry.
For me, I guess my personal mantra moving forward will be more, if I fail, learn from the failure, try and make you smarter and more strategic the next time round. That's how I want to move forward. And also, I want to always live to my potential. So I've gotten this far on the investments of the Australian government, lots of different funding, and my wonderful boss. So I want to live to my potential, so I don't want to waste this opportunity.
I would say if someone gives you an opportunity, there's a reason that they've come to you. And even if you think you have no idea how to do it, just do it anyway. I really do think so, because you'll figure it out. Because normally that's why you've been given the opportunity. So take it up and figure it out. But the other marriage advice that my mum gave me, which is really useful, is when I used to live at home, my dad, even though he's a civil engineer, he knew how to fix nothing. Nothing. So every time the gas broke, video broke, lights needed, it was me and my mum that used to fix everything. And she said to me, Rayna, when you get married, just don't do any of this stuff. Just pretend you don't know, and just don't do it. And actually, that is the best marriage advice I've ever received.
All right, thank you. Could join me in thanking our amazing panel.
Thanks, Dee. Thank you to the panel for their insights and advice. And so thanks, everyone, and join us for lunch.